Democrat of the day. This is an important one, folks. We have a ton of House races. We've talked about the House races. We've talked about the statewide races, but we have one Senate race that is going on. Michelle Fischbach has resigned her seat. Of course, she became the lieutenant governor through a quirk in the Constitution, and henceforth her seat's open. That's Senate District 13. And if the Democrats win this seat, the Democrats gain control of the Minnesota Senate. It's a big race. Joe Perske is joining us. He's the DFL endorsed candidate. He is kind enough to take some time to talk about his campaign. Hi, Joe.
Hey, good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for the time. I imagine this has been a pretty high spotlight race for you.
Well, I'll tell you what, energy-wise, it certainly has. I'll tell you, from the time it's dark in the morning till the time it's dark at night, and then even sometime later, it's just go, 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 always something. There seems always something to do, an email, a phone call, door knocking, and it's been a true marathon.
Well, and this is, once again, this is a big seat. As of right now, Republicans are in trouble in this country and in the state of Minnesota. I mean, there's a lot of House races, especially metro area House races where Republicans hold the seat. And especially after the Kavanaugh debacle, suburban women are running away from the Republican Party right now. It looks like the Democrats have a chance at picking back up the Minnesota House. But if Tim Walz is to win the governorship and the Minnesota House goes to the DFL, then you were to win in this seat, then we technically would have a Democratic governor, leadership in all the houses of the bodies here, and we'd actually be able to get some stuff done as opposed to what the Republicans have been doing for the last 4 years.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't know if you're much familiar with the Senate 13 district, but the DFL came to me and asked me to run. Presently, I'm a county commissioner. Before that time, I was the mayor of Sartell, and time before that, I was actually on the council for 6 years. So I do come with some experience, as well as being a teacher up in Sartell for 26 years and a teacher for 37 years.
And you got good, and I will say this, buckling your campaign are some good House races as well. Jim Reed, we actually did talk to him as Democrat of the Day a few weeks back. He's a great candidate. So 13A is looking like they're being, got a chance for that DFL pickup there. Heidi Everett, we have not been able to get her on yet, but obviously I'm hearing a lot of good things about her as well. So with the three of you running in 13, this could be a year where, the Democrats, the DFL, really does do some surprises, and we end up taking the Senate as well.
Yeah, that could very well be true. I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing in the door knocking. I'll tell you what, I've been doing quite a bit of door knocking for the last 4.5, 5 months. Just basically all of Paynesville, Cold Spring, Richmond, Holdingford, St. Stephen, up and down that Highway 23 corridor, as well as Sauk Rapids, Sartell. And I'll tell you what, the response has been very positive.
We should mention 13, for layman's terms, is basically west, south, and kind of northwest of St. Cloud. Is that a good way to say it?
That's where you could say that. I'll just tell you, Sauk Rapids and Sartell, and then on the west side of St. Cloud going from St. Joe, and then follow that Highway 23 corridor down to Paynesville, but then also go north up to Holdingford and down south to Kimball. So it's a pretty good piece of property.
How has it been? I mean, we've talked, I got to tell you the truth is we've talked to some statewide races, and obviously it's a different kind of campaign they're running on a statewide race. The House races, they've got a lot of distance to cover, but you've got this entire district. Have you been able to get out there, as you talked about door knocking, have you been able to get into pretty much most of the communities and get representation from your campaign out there to talk to the people?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, I've knocked all those doors in those communities I've mentioned, and then including 13 days up in Sauk Rapids. I've got half of St. Joe done, and I'm going to finish in Sartell. And otherwise, I've been to just about every door. And if people look around those communities, they're going to see a lot of Perske signs, because those are contacts that I've met, and those people believe in me. So it's been one heck of a trip so far. Also, all the parades, as far as shaking hands and getting out there and passing out stickers and having conversations with people. It's been a pretty intense campaign.
For everyone out there who's listening right now, why don't we just get a little bit of a background on who exactly is Joe Perske?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. And one thing that was going on here is that the makeup of the district is relatively conservative. It's been quite a while since we've had any representation from the Democratic side. And so the DFL came to me and said, Perske, do you want to run? And I said, well, I'll tell you what, it's not the best time in my life. My mom is 98 years old, and my daughter just had triplets. And, there's those family issues there too. And, those were concerning for me, whether or not I should get involved with the race. But on the other side, I'll tell you what, I'm so frustrated with the legislature by like so many Minnesotans. They fight like cats and dogs down there. They go after each other, almost like the Vikings and the Packers when they put those jerseys on. And that's just not something I did as a commissioner or what I did as a mayor. My focus has always been on people and been on the issues. And people that know me, they know that, again, I'm not necessarily a party person. Mm-hmm. I'm a people person, and that's what I hope to necessarily bring down there. And I've told the DFO when they asked me to run, I said, you know what, we've got some huge issues in front of us, and we've got to make sure we move these things forward. And I'll tell you what, a bridge or a road isn't Democrat or Republican. And you know what, a healthcare plan shouldn't be Democrat or Republican either. If we go down to the state fair and we walk through there, we see tens of thousands of people. Can you tell me which one doesn't need health care? Every person we see down there needs a health care plan. Mm-hmm. So let's just come forward and say, do we want health care for some or health care for all? And so to me, it's health care for all. So let's get that done.
I understand, and I've talked to a lot of people, and they always say the partisan bickering is kind of the problem. But I always like to point out to people this. There was a ton. Let's take Omnibus Prime. There was a ton in that bill that had pretty much universal support. Republicans, Democrats were there, and the Republican leadership, and I understand partisan stuff, and people are hesitant to do this, but we need to call the goat a goat. And the Republicans basically held hostage tons of pieces of legislation that had the majority of the House on board, majority of the Senate on board. Governor Dayton was willing to sign, and they held that aside to try to push forward this extreme far-right agenda, which they knew wasn't going to happen.
Absolutely. And even, by statute, that's not supposed to be happening. Yeah. And again, but from my perspective as a commissioner and as a mayor, get that good legislation done. Those things should stand on their own merits, pass, get them done. And the things we don't agree on, let's work and find compromise. If we find compromise, we'll pass those too. But I'll tell you what, if we don't find compromise, let's leave them on the shelf because they're not good for Minnesota.
The Republicans, you brought up health care. Let's get into this issue because this is an issue that the Republicans can't win even in the most conservative districts. And the reason why is they have promised for how many years now, repeal and replace Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. They've also said that Trump ran on numerous times saying you're going to get better health care that's less expensive. Today, Donald Trump actually, he basically put down the fact that he'll veto a bill that has anything in it that, saves people that have pre-existing conditions. So, this whole argument that he's going to give you health care is crazy. The Republicans, you can see that they're desperate to keep 13. They're sending in every Republican from the state into campaign in that district. The reality is they don't have an answer for health care because the reality is they want to go back to the time when the options were bankruptcy or death.
Yeah. And I'm hearing the struggles from people at the door. And I mean, premiums continue to go up, deductibles continue to go up, pharmaceuticals continue to go up. I ran into a carpenter down in Pearl Lake paying $1,200 a month with a $6,000 deductible. He's into it for $20,000. $20,000. That's the worst case scenario, I guess, that I've heard. And to me, it's unfathomable. And you know what? We've been kicking this healthcare thing down the road for the last couple of decades. And it's time we sit back and we say, hey, it's time to make the decision. How are we going to really resolve this? Let's have some open, honest dialogue. But the bottom line is, if you want to make it competitive, the insurance companies, they don't want the one with diabetes. They don't want the one with the tumor. They don't want the woman with breast cancer. They can't make money off those people. And so they want to exclude them. That doesn't make healthcare for all.
No, it doesn't. And we started to try to solve the problem. And once again, I mean, there were legitimate people that said, wait a minute here, my health care plan went away. Well, yeah, your health care plan went away because it was a garbage plan that didn't really cover you and they were made illegal. And so, yeah, those.
Right. And there too is looking for honest solutions. The option of saying, well, let's go buy, insurance from out of state. So, okay, let's get a $179 plan a month out of Alabama. And so now you submit that claim and, okay, you call the 800 number. The claim hasn't been settled. They say, try to, contact the Attorney General from Alabama and get that claim settled. It's just not going to happen. We need to make sure that we have control and that, people needs are being met. No question
Absolutely,
about it.
absolutely. And by the way, I'm glad you brought that up. You're the first person to bring that up. One of the Republicans' main strategies is these outstate plans, where in a state where they have a bought and paid for government, which will allow that healthcare company to offer trash policies that don't cover anything, not even a flu shot. That is not a solution, because once again, your kid gets sick, and God forbid they get sick with a serious problem. You are going to do everything in your power to try to save your child. You don't want that to be the time you find out that that healthcare policy that you were promised was going to cover something covers nothing.
Right. And very typically, people, see a 30-page document in front of them. They read the first few sentences, and then they look where do they sign their name. And so many times they have no idea what they're actually buying, and then you're up to the information perhaps the agent is telling you, and they can present it the way they want. And not the best way to buy insurance.
Once again, Joe Perske is joining us right now. He's the Senate candidate. We got one Senate race in the state, and whoever wins this will have control of the Senate. Senate District 13. He's kind enough to take some time. Broadband. As you talk about healthcare, and then we can go into 1,000 other different areas. Broadband is the problem, and where one of my arguments of a tent pole of government is that when the private sector fails or refuses to do something for a community, or the charitable organizations or whatever, they can't do it. The government has a role, especially when it's a main infrastructure idea, a water line, a road, that they need to step on in and basically supply that. We are at a point where broadband is an infrastructure, as is power, as is water, as is a road. And the fact that we don't have this extensively throughout the entire state is a crime. You talk about healthcare, it would help healthcare, it will help schools and education dramatically, it helps job growth, it keeps jobs in communities, it helps the farmer. I mean, reality here is that Republicans have been promising broadband forever. We could get broadband out there as long as we have the Democratic leadership to get that done.
Yeah, and that's something we've talked extensively at the county level too, and at my visits to the townships. There are townships in my district here that are hurting and not being able to receive, the broadband that they need for the reasons you just mentioned. And by all means, we can be much better off if we get that broadband out there to them in many different ways. But there too, one thing I will tell you, I come here looking for solutions. My background, again, as a mayor, as a commissioner, as a council member, even as a school teacher, I never asked a person, when their kids had problems, is your family Democrat or Republican? Or when somebody comes up to me and, asks me a question to be resolved as the mayor or the commissioner, are you a Democrat or Republican? Good Lord, guys, let's get these things moving forward. Let's work together. And this, again, going back to this omnibus bill and the idea that they want to go down there and let me just say, I know there's a lot of good people down there. I've worked with the people in the St. Cloud area, but it just seems that they put those jerseys on like Vikings and Packers, and they draw the line, and they just don't want to move it forward because of the color of their jersey. But I'll tell you what, when I go to the doors, I tell people it's more important for me to focus on the people than focus on the parties. Because if I go back to the roots of the Constitution says we the people and not we the party, and let's get those things done. And again, let's focus on the needs of the people.
Well, and you talk about door knocking. This seems to be one of the big differences this election season around is that in a lot of districts, I've talked to Democrats in every corner of the state. The door knocking, this is the first. There are many people that they're going to their door and they're saying, this is the first Democrat that's shown up in 10 years to knock on my door and talk about their campaign. The Democrats are not afraid to get out there this year, and I think that's a good sign because the Republicans, frankly, are, for the most part, terrified of going out there and defending their policies and their agenda. And so, have you run into that at all? Have you run into anything?
Absolutely. So many doors I've come to, people have just said, you know what, you got my vote because you're the first candidate ever to come to my door and ask me what my opinion was or how I feel or to present yourself and see you live. And they'll say, well, you are the guy. They'll say, you're the guy that's on the flyer. You're the guy I see on TV. And they're rather impressed that I'm actually right there at their door, speaking them face to face. Unfortunately, with with the sun setting earlier and earlier, it gets a little bit scary around our own bedtime now.
Yeah, it does. I mean,
and I don't want to catch people in their jammies either. So,
well, this is a good
Yeah.
segue for everyone because obviously then we need to maximize the weekends. And, we want people, help your local Democrat, by all means, help your local Democrat. But if you're in a relatively safe district, take some time, get up to 13. We need people on the ground in 13, door knocking, phone calling, helping out the campaign. If you can make a donation, help Joe out here because 13 is the Senate. And if Joe goes to the Senate, guess what? The DFL controls the Senate. And that would be amazing. Joe, I'm pretty sure you could use some volunteers. So if someone's looking to get information on this, how can they find out more information?
Absolutely. Very simply, Perske for Senate. If you just go Google that, go Perske for Senate, you'll get a link to our website, information there as far as making a contribution or giving us a phone call. And we've got some door knocking times that people can sign up for. And again, weekends, we're going to be very busy every weekend here down the stretch and always looking forward to talking to people at the doors. And it's very simple. When we go to a door and we talk about people, we talk about jobs, education, healthcare, treating people fairly, then we win because that's meeting the needs of the people.
You got 4 weekends left, people. You want to make this blue wave happen, there's one way you can do it, and that's getting out there and helping out. You got 4 weekends to get on up there and help out in 13. Perske, Perske, for Senate.com. Perske for Senate. I'll link to everything a little bit later on, Joe. I'm really glad. I'm glad they went and got you to run in this race.
Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe one other thing you do or you don't know about me, and if you take a look at my logo, there's a little runner up there, and I just want you to know that that runner represents a running of over 90,000 miles that I've run. I've run over 100 marathons, and I'm bringing that passion from a couple of Olympic trials, a couple of World Cup races. Even I ran around the Lax Lake. That's the kind of intensity I'm bringing into this campaign as well. And when I focus on issues and I focus on people, I bring that passion into it as well.
You ran around Mille Lacs? Wow. All right.
62 miles, 7 hours and 37 minutes.
I get winded driving around it. So that's me. Joe Perske, thank you very much, Joe. All my best in Senate District 13, and I hope we can see you in St. Paul come next year.
Absolutely. We're in this to win, and it looks like we're going to win. And again, every night, every day, I'm out there knocking doors, talking to people until we get it done.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate the time. Take care.